Hi guys! In today's video, I'm going to be turning a $1 car sponge into a squishy, and this is my first time ever making a squishy, and it was actually super easy. So in this video, I'm going to talk you through the process. Usually squishies are made of memory foam, so when I was looking for a sponge, I wanted one that was soft but also didn't have loads of holes in it, so when I painted it, it wouldn't just sink in. And I found the closest thing to that was a car sponge, and this is actually so hard to cut out, so I made a little indentation with a Stanley knife and then cut it out a lot bigger than I wanted it, because when I trimmed it down, it did make it a lot smaller. And to make it into a squishy, the main thing you're going to need is some puffy paint. This paint is like magic. I don't know how it works exactly, but it completely changes the way the sponge acts. And before it was kind of really bouncy, but after I painted this on, it became super slow rising and like a squishy. And the most interesting thing about this was because it's a sponge, it really kind of wanted to drink up all the paint. So I decided to make a base layer quite thin of all the paint and just put as much as I can on without it getting sunken in, making sure all the parts were covered. And then I just let it dry for a day, so it was hard. And this dry layer of paint acts like a barrier, so when you add your future layers, it can kind of start looking like a squishy and a lot more smooth. So after I did this, I got some lollipop sticks, and this makes it so easy to smooth on. It's so much easier than using a brush. And I did find that the little nozzle on the puffy paint was just so annoying to me, so I chopped it off, and then as you can see, you can get so much more out, and it's kind of like icing a cake, like the squishy is intended to be, but it was so satisfying to do it this way. It took so much less time, and you can get a really thick layer on. If you're doing this, I do recommend just letting the bottom dry at a separate time, because I found the bottom of mine was wet, so I had to let it dry for 2 days instead of 1. And I also propped up on this so it wouldn't be touching the table or attached to it. And when it had dried, it definitely wasn't as smooth as when the paint was on it, but it finally started acting like a squishy. And so I went in with my decorations, and again we're going to be using puffy paint, but this time we're going to be using coloured puffy paint to act as kind of cake fillings, I guess. And this was so easy to wipe off any mistakes. I just used a normal tissue you'd use for like blowing your nose, and I just wiped it off, and it was so shiny on the surface that it was just really easy to smooth on, and also really easy to work with in terms of cleanup. So I decided to go in with 4 colours. I went pink, yellow, purple and blue, and I found that the best technique for painting this is to go in with the side of your brush. For some reason this just went on a lot smoother, and just to go in with the tissue again and again to make sure that you weren't messing up. The thing that most surprised me about squishy making was how long all the paint takes to dry. So for this layer, I needed to leave it for another day. So with the paint stripes alone, you need 3 days. So this is a really long DIY, but it's definitely worth it in my opinion if you just like fun projects. And also, if you do make this, do mix the colours before you put it on. I decided I was trying to get a like kind of be satisfying and mix it on there, but it didn't work. It went on the bottom. And for this, it actually taught me a really clever cleanup thing. So I decided that, like the Instagram eyebrow girls, I was gonna go in with a different colour, just the white paint, to clean it up and make everything look a lot cleaner than it was and hide any mistakes. And this did work really well. As you can see, you couldn't really see the mistakes. And after letting this dry, I just put on some Elmer's paint on the top, and this was really good for kind of sticking things on. I added a huge bunch of it because I knew I was going to be adding a lot of confetti, and when I did this, I tried to make it not go on the paint because it still hadn't fully dried at this point, even though it had been like 10 hours, and then I let it dry, and when it dried, it was so smooth rising. The one thing I did notice is that the confetti did occasionally fall off, but as you can see, it was very fun to play with. But surprisingly, the middle bit wasn't very soft. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really hope that you enjoyed it, and if you did, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, and I will see you next week.